In this video, we're going to be putting together the rotating assembly for my 2JZ GTE VVTi engine. This one's going in my Toyota Aristo. It's my first time doing any sort of engine build, so if you see me do something, don't just copy me because I did it. If you see me do something wrong, put a comment below so I can fix it before this thing goes in the car. So we're going to be focusing on the rotating assembly, so basically crank, pistons, rods. So I'll show you what we're working with. This is a fully machined GTE VVTi block. It's been decked, it's been bored and honed, it's been bored and line honed, hot tanked. What else? I think everything that needed to be done basically has been done. So I'm going to focus on putting in the crank, the main caps, the bearings and studs first, and then we'll move on from there. So I guess the first thing I'll do will be put in the squirters, the oil squirters. I'm going to flip over the engine and then we'll move on to that bit. So everything's been cleaned very thoroughly. The block has been painted, as you can see, and we're just going to focus on putting the oil squirters in first. Unfortunately, the lighting in the garage isn't the best, so I'm working with a Ryobi light. Now with these oil squirters, you'll notice they kind of only go in one spot, and then you just have to line up the bolt hole. I just placed it in there. As you can see, I'll grab a bolt. There's one of the bolts. It's an Allen head. I probably should have checked first what size Allen, but I'll screw that in. And those get torqued down to, I believe, 78 inch-pounds. I'll double check that. My torque wrench only goes to Newton meters, so I'm gonna do 9 Newton meters to be safe. I'll put all 6 in and then we'll move on to the main bearings. So I've got all the oil squirters positioned in there just loosely now, just finger tight, all the bolts. And they're gonna get torqued down to 9 Newton meters. I'm gonna do now. And it's a T5, by the way, so we're just gonna tighten this real quick. All 6. I've done 2 already. Just in there till they click, and that's it. And move on to the rest of them. I'll get all these done and then I'll come back to you guys. So I've got all the oil squirters in there, torqued down to 9 Newton meters. Now I'm just going to go ahead and wipe off any oil that I got on the main saddles, because you want the bearings to be installed dry. So I'm going to use a lint-free cloth. You don't want any gunk behind those bearings. So I'm just going to wipe them all down, just so you can see that they're a bit shiny. They're quite oily. I did that to prevent rust while it was just sitting. So I'm going to wipe all that off and then get those bearings in. Alright, so I've just given all the bearings a quick clean with some brake clean and a lint-free cloth. And if you notice here, you'll see some of the bearings, or half of the bearings, have a groove in them, and then the other half are just solid, there's no groove. Now these ones will go into the main caps, and these will go into the block. There will be one bearing that's slightly thicker, which is this one here. If you have a look, it's slightly thicker. That belongs in the first main saddle, because that is slightly thicker. And then when you put in the bearings in, you'll see a tang on the bearing. I'll get some light, sorry. You'll see a tang there, and then there's that spot in the slot in the block for it as well. So you just locate it. I need 2 hands for this, but anyways, as you can see, that's lined up there. The tang's lined up in the block, and then you kind of just press it down, and then it's in there. You'll know when it's in there. It'll be a bit level with the block, as you can see there. It's not poking out or anything. They're kind of just, it's like it belongs in there. That one's in. Now I'll do the rest. They're all basically the same. Just locate it, and then you press it in, and that's it. That's in there. That's the first 2 done. I'll do the rest and I'll come back to you. Alright, now I've got all the main bearings in the block. And now I'm just going to go ahead and lube them all up with some Permatex Ultra Slick. So I'm basically going to put a bit, I'll just put a bit in the middle and then I'll spread it all around later on. It's just going to make a mess everywhere anyway. Alright, as you can see now, those bearings are fully lubed up. So the next step would be to grab the crank. So I'm going to put the camera on a tripod. I'm going to grab the crank and put her in. Sorry, I lied. Before the crank goes in, we're going to do the main studs. So we're just going to thread them into the block with a bit of oil on the threads that go into the block. And then we'll put the crank in. Right, I'm doing this the lazy way. I've got a container of oil. I've got my main stud. I'm going to oil the threads that go into the block, so it's the opposite end to the end that's got the Allen head. So I'm just going to dip it in very lightly. I don't want too much on the threads. Just enough to lubricate them. And then I'm just going to screw it into the block. And I'll do that for all of them. 18, whatever it is. 14. Another thing I forgot to mention is these go in only finger tight, so you're not talking these down to anything. Just literally just finger tight. Alright, now you can probably see the main studs are all in, just finger tight, literally. So we've got the main studs in, the main bearings in, they're all lubed up. And now is actually time to put the crank in. Alright, we've got the crank. Now I want to lower it in without knocking anything. It should go in smoothly. And just like that, just straight in place. As you can see, crank is in there. We're not going to spin it around just yet. Don't want to get assembly lube on this surface yet, the main cap surface, because we need to double check the spec using some plastic gauge. The machine shop has verified everything, but we're just going to double check and make sure that it's all within the spec that they said it should be. So we'll do that now. I'll grab some plastic gauge, get the main caps and main bearings ready, and we'll chuck them on, check the specs. So I'm gonna put the main bearings into the main caps. So basically, these caps all have a certain position they gotta go. They're all numbered, and that's because they've been line honed and bored specifically for that specific journal. So this is number 1, and the arrow will point towards the front of the block, so towards where your balancer would be. So I'm gonna go and put all the bearings into the main caps. Again, same thing. There will be one slightly thicker, and that goes into the first one. And then again, you just line up the tangs and push it in. It's pretty simple. It's nothing crazy. So I'll get all those bearings into there and then move on to putting them onto the block, but making sure that the plastic gauge is on the crank so we can check the clearance. So I'll be back in a sec. Now, as you can see here, I've got plastic gauge on every journal. I'm gonna just tie down these main caps now in 3 equal steps to 60 foot-pounds, and then we'll undo them all, check those clearances, make sure they're good, and then we'll put the thrust washers in, and then main caps back on. After cleaning the plastic gauge off, we'll put the main caps back on with some lube as well. So we'll get onto that. Right, I'm back about 45 minutes later. As you can see, all the main caps are off. I've checked all the main bearing clearances with plastic gauge. They were all spot on, so the machine shop did a good job. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the thrust washers in as I mentioned earlier I would do now. So I'm going to go ahead and put some lube on the side that faces the crank. So that will be the side that has these grooves in it. I'm going to lube up all of these. I'm trying my best to do this while recording. So basically we're going to try and fish this in down into there, if you can see. Put it in there, and then you've got to kind of fish it around and get it over to the underneath of the crank to the bottom. Got to kind of, it's not easy. Alright. Right, as you can see, it's now poking up from the other side. I hope you see that. Right down in there. And just going to do the same with the other one. Alright, I had to put the camera down to get that other thrust washer in. It's in there now. That lube is really slick, so it was hard for me to fish it in there. But they're both in there now. I hope you can see that. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to lube up all the bearings in the main caps. And then these thrust washers, when I put the main caps on, these top thrust washers are going to go onto this middle main cap. The lube side facing outwards, the dry side facing the cap, and you can kind of hold it all together with those two little tabs there. I'm going to go lube these all up and put all the main caps on the block, and then I'll come back to you. Alright, so all the main caps are in the block, and they're all the bearings have been lubed up, the thrust washers are in there. Next, I'm going to use some of the ARP lubricant with the washers and nuts, and I'm going to torque these all down to 60 pound-foot or foot-pound, whatever it is, in 3 equal steps. I'll go 20, 40, and then 60, and then hopefully this crank spins nice and easy. Alright, and as you can see, we've got the crank all together with all the bearings and the main caps. And it spins nice and freely. It's a bit hard to turn over just by hand because of that ultra slick lube. But just with a little bit of leverage, and it spins nice and easy. No binding. That's exactly what you want. Next we'll move on to the pistons and the rods. Alright, so we're back the next day. Today I'm going to work on the pistons and the rods. First thing I'm going to do is sort out the ring gaps. The machine shop has said they've gapped them, but I'm just going to double check. It's always good to double check. So how I'm going to do it is I'm going to grab a ring, I'm going to put it into the cylinder bore, and then I'm going to get a piston and kind of level it out in there. And then I'm going to use these feeler gauges just to double check that the gap is correct. Alright, so I've checked all the ring gaps. They're all perfect, exactly what the machine shop said they had gapped them to. It's a few days later now. Unfortunately, the last time I was working on this, when I was assembling one of the rods to the pistons, one of the circlips or piston locks decided to bend on me, and I wasn't seating properly anymore. So I'll show you what ended up happening. As you can see, it's very clearly bent, and that wasn't causing that wasn't seating properly anymore. So I'm back now. I've done the other 5. I'll do this last one on camera now that I know how to do it properly. Alright, now with these circlips, hopefully these ones don't bend. I had to get some new ones. So basically there's like a groove in there that they have to seat into, and these hold the pin in place. So you kind of just got to feed that in there, hold the top with your thumb, hold it and push it down at the same time, and then get a pick. I find a pick is easiest. There's a little groove in there, put the pick in the groove and then push it inwards while you're pushing down with your thumb, and it'll kind of, and that's in there. You should hear a good click, and that'll let you know that that's in there now. Just have a look, make sure it's fully seated, and then you can move on to grabbing the pin. You want to make sure that you've lubed up this pin as well, so I'm going to do that now. Nothing crazy, just enough so that it slides in easily, doesn't scratch up. Once you got that lubed up, get the other side. You're going to feed the pin in from the opposite side that you just put the lock in. So you kind of work it in there. Alright, grab your rod, and you're going to kind of line it up in there with the pin, and then push the pin all the way through. And you'll see it'll bottom out on that other lock that you got in there. And I'm just going to wipe through this lube off to make putting the pin in a bit easier. Alright, now with the lock for the other side, same deal. Put one spot into the groove. I find positioning it like right there is easiest. Let me move these out of the way. Positioning it right there is easiest. Then you kind of want to force it down with your thumb. Make sure it stays in there. Force it down with your thumb. And at the same time, use the pick and get it into there. Alright, and that's in. You heard a few good clicks. And then just make sure you have a look, and you should be able to clearly see that the lock is fully seated into that groove, as you can see there. You will scratch up the piston a bit as well while you're doing this, so don't stress about that. Just avoid scratching it too much. Alright, next we're going to move on to piston rings, installing them onto the piston and then positioning them. Positioning the gap where they're supposed to be according to CP. I know there's a lot of people that have different opinions on it, but I'm just going to follow CP, what they recommend. So the first ring you want to put on is the... I've already cleaned all these with ATF and they were very dirty. But yeah, first ring you want to put on is the oil expander ring, or oil scraper ring, whatever this is called. This goes on the bottom, in the bottom groove there. Just kind of feed it in. That's in there. The next one is the bottom oil ring. These can be flexed. Put it on the bottom. You kind of just feed it around. Oh, that one ended up in the top. That doesn't matter. That's right. I'll just put the next one on the bottom. Same thing again. One goes on the top of the oil expander. One goes on the bottom. You kind of just twist these ones around. Alright, and it spins nice and easy, and it's all in there. Now the next one we're going to need a piston ring expander tool for. We're going to do this bottom compression ring, second compression ring, whatever you want to call it. There's a marking on it, an N, that will face up, that end will face up. So you put it in the piston ring expander tool, expand it, and then it goes in this second slot. You can't really mess this one up because it only fits in one groove anyway. So I'll put it over, and just like that, and it spins nice and easy. Same thing with this second one. There's a marking on it, another N, and that will face up. I don't know if you can see that, it's very faint. There is an N on there though, I can see it. And this one just goes on the top. Again. Just like that, easy. Alright, now the piston ring gap orientation, I'm following, like I said, CP. So this is the front of the motor. They say the top gap will be here, the second ring gap will be here. So they're basically 180 from each other. So I'm going to do that now. Spin it around. You can use a pick as well if it's a bit easier for you. And now the top oil ring will be here. Top oil ring will be here, and the bottom one will be here. These ones, the gap isn't too big, so it's a bit tricky. I've got to find it. Oh, it's over here. I'm just going to use a pick to move this one. Basically just putting it in that valve relief. I don't know if you can see. I don't think you can see, but anyways. And then this second one, I'm going near that bottom valve relief. And then that's the ring gap orientation. So as you can see, top ring gap is there, second ring gap is there, and then the oil rings, one is right there, and then the other one is right there, just underneath the valve reliefs. Next, we'll move on to putting these into the block. Now, before I go ahead and get these pistons and rods into the block, I'm going to put the bearings onto the rods and the rod caps. I'm only going to lube up the rod side for now, because I want to double check the clearances with some plastic gauge as well. So, I mean, these bearings are literally very straightforward. Basically, they're the exact same as the main bearings were, and you can't really get them wrong. They're both, all the rod bearings are the same. But you just have to line up the tang. So again, you got the tang on the rod and the bearing. You're just going to line that up and then press the other side in, and then that's in there. It's that easy. I'm going to get all these on and lube up the rod side, and then we'll come back with the block. Alright, so I've got two of the pistons and rods in, and I'll show you how I'm doing them. So basically I'm coating the piston, the part that contacts the bore, I'm coating that in oil. I'm also coating the piston ring compressor in oil. And then you basically feed the piston into the compressor, leave a bit of the skirt exposed, and then you gotta tighten this down so that it compresses the ring. So I'll tighten it down real quick. Alright, now the piston rings have been compressed as much as they can. So basically what I'm going to do is feed the piston rod into the bore very carefully, making sure not to hit the bore with the rod. And I'm going to make the deck level with the edge of the compressor. I'll show you now. So I'm going to lower it in very carefully. As you can see there, the compressor is actually sitting on the deck. And just like that, the piston is in. I'm just going to push it down to meet the crank. And there we go. Basically repeat that for the next one, which in my case will be number 5 now. So I'll get that done and then I'll flip the block over. Alright, as you can see here, I've got the rod cap with the ARP bolts and the bearing all lubed up. I've just put some ARP lube as well on the threads, only a little bit, and underneath the head of the bolt. So I'm going to put this down in here and tighten these bolts down. They're getting torqued to 45 foot-pounds. As you can see, I've already got that rod cap in there as well, ready to be torqued down. So I'll get these torqued down now. Bam! And the 2JZ rotating assembly, or short block, whatever you want to call it, is all done. Spins nice and freely, so hopefully it's all been done correctly. Like I said at the start, I've never built an engine before. It's my first attempt. I'm just going solely based off of YouTube videos and a bit of forum research. So if you see me do something that doesn't seem right, let me know, drop a comment, but hopefully it's all good. Yeah, so leave a like, subscribe, and I'll bring some more videos out for the rest of the assembly of this motor, and then you'll get to see when it goes back in the car. All right.